Hey, thank you so much for joining us for our final session in our Point in Time Count Lunch and Learn series. So just a couple of reminders, this session will be recorded, so you're welcome to leave your camera on or turn it off. Please make sure to keep your microphone muted. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can add them to the chat, and if we have time at the end, we'll be sure to address them. So throughout the week, you've heard the results of the point in time count, a discussion on addressing the gaps. And now today, we really want to focus on how do we take all that we've learned and what we've seen over the last year and take actions to prevent and address homelessness. So today's presentation, you'll hear from Melody Woosley, the Director of Human Services at the City of San Antonio, to learn more about the homeless strategic plan we've adopted as a community and what our next steps are to address homelessness. You'll also hear from members of our Youth Action Board, Suyapa Munoz and Tanya Richard, and they'll be talking about our strategic plan specifically for youth and young adults. So with that, I will let Melody kick us off with the overview of the homeless strategic plan.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for having me here today. This is a great opportunity to, really let the community know what we're doing around homelessness and not just the city, but the entire homeless response system. And I also love that we're presenting alongside the Youth Development Strategic Plan, because I think it's so important that those two plans work together and the systems work together. And so homelessness, really does continue to be a priority issue for the city of San Antonio. This week in the Point in Time Count series, you've heard about the latest count results in Bexar County and about the gaps, as Katie said. And so today I want to talk about some of the next steps forward for our homeless system, work that has been developed with a broad base of input to guide the next 5 years for our community to address homelessness. Next slide, please. And so homelessness continues to be something that the community is visible to the community is interested in. The city contracted with Homebase to develop a community strategic plan. Homebase began their work in November of 2019, and the work went on into the spring of 2020. As the report was near final, the pandemic hit, and so delaying release of the report for several months, but I'll explain in a moment why that wasn't really a bad thing. Homebase analyzed community data from the point in time counts, HMIS, and other sources. We held over 50 meetings with over 500 participants, and several of those meetings were focus groups with people currently experiencing homelessness. We also held 6 open meetings for anyone that could come and provide their input. With the pandemic, the plan was updated to reflect the changed landscape of homelessness, including an infusion of federal CARES Act dollars to the community that is helping us change the way we house homeless. Next slide, please. And so the strategic plan identified a number of strengths in our community in addressing homelessness, our can-do attitude, and really a strong spirit of innovation, culture of compassion and empathy, the philosophy of continuous improvement in all that we do, a strong network of providers who are really committed to collaboration. Next slide. And so some things that, before I get into the recommendations, some things that we want to note for context. So overall, San Antonio is experiencing a surge in Bexar County, a surge in population growth and rising rental costs at the same time, putting more individuals at risk of experiencing homelessness. Our unsheltered homelessness is more visible than ever. We don't have a unsheltered point in time count data to quantify that compared to last year, but the visibility has certainly increased. Family homelessness increased by 12% between 2016 and 2020, despite only a 5% increase in homelessness overall. And homelessness in San Antonio is disproportionately increasing among certain age cohorts. This includes the youth cohort and also our senior, our older adults who are over the age of 50. Next slide, please. From the stakeholder input, the plan identified several opportunity areas for improvement. And, that we develop more, more permanent and affordable housing options and services, address the unsheltered population. Many people saw this as not only the most visible issue, but also the most vulnerable. That we can do more to improve our coordination and communication, foster cross-system partnerships with groups like the faith community, businesses, justice system, healthcare providers, that we should increase funding with more flexibility and adjust our response for unique groups experiencing homelessness. The unique needs of those experiencing homelessness, who are seniors, people who are involved in the criminal justice system, survivors of domestic violence, and youth, to be more individual in how we work with homeless. And so, next slide, please. And so from all of the analysis that Homebase did and the stakeholder input, best practices, evaluation, Homebase developed 6 major recommendations, which you see here. And I'll spend a little more time going into detail of each of these in the next few slides. Next slide, please. And so the first one, increasing focus on consumer engagement and equity. This is about establishing diverse forums for consumer input to address inequities. An example would be cited in the plan's research is that Black individuals access sober living and treatment programs at lower rates than they are represented in the HMIS system. And this suggests that a possible barrier to accessing these programs among the homeless population who are Black. And so, the next step is really considering development of a consumer action board. Other communities have examples of this to put structure around feedback loop to involve clients and people with lived experience. We also want to document lessons from the Youth Action Board, who you'll hear from later, who really did a great job of developing this kind of a recommendation in their strategic plan. And then as far as expanding, the next key recommendation, expanding outreach teams and improving outreach coordination, we are increasing the number of street outreach workers in the community. Just the city is hiring 11, and we're contracting for more with some of our nonprofit partners, because we want to make sure that we are out in the community identifying and assisting people who might otherwise be missed. We also are developing shared standards of practice and definitions regarding outreach that our providers community-wide and members of SARA will use in their street outreach work. Also, developing lead homeless outreach clinicians and creating distinct protocols for warm handoffs of homeless from outreach to a shelter, housing, or case management. Next slide, please. And so the next key recommendation is to develop detailed prioritization policies and targeted intervention for unsheltered homeless population. We'll consider coordinated entry prioritization that best fits the community, provide outreach and engagement to connect clients to the housing system, and develop short-term low barrier interventions. And following on that, implementing a collective impact leadership group, doing this through focusing on areas of coordination and alignment for overall strategic vision. The overall coordination across the system since COVID has been tremendous, and we want to carry on that coordination into the future to create lasting change for the system. We also want to measure success and outcomes, and we want to do this in coordination with SARA and the entire system, and ensure that we are messaging that information to the community. and also coordinating a stronger system of emergency response. In addition to COVID, the February winter storm was an exceptional example of coordination across all parties in the face of extreme events. And this is really the time to build on that. Next slide, please. And so supporting development of service-enriched housing options is the next key strategy. Creating homeless strategic plan housing implementation executive team to assess needs and recommended unit production. Creating pre-development loan or lending fund, and investing in site-based affordable and permanent supportive housing. Presently, our community only has scattered site permanent supportive housing, and having strong site-based PSH will allow services to be provided on-site at a single site for residents. And then the final recommendation was to conduct a frequent user system engagement or FUSE analysis. Many clients experiencing homeless are also interacting with systems, hospital systems, mental health systems, judicial systems. A FUSE study would help us identify trends, create additional opportunities for engagement and coordination, and increase partnerships to meet the needs of the clients. Next slide. There were a number of additional recommendations, less intensive, but important, and you can see those on the screen. One is launching a really strong community education campaign, which we're currently beginning to work on, so that we can decrease the stigma of homelessness, educate the community on homelessness and services, promote community involvement, and also just make sure and let the community know what we're doing, that we're working on the challenges of homelessness and helping people reach a better standard of living. And also, other recommendations included developing rapid rehousing standards. This is currently in progress in coordination with providers who provide rapid rehousing services. Also implementing or working on the coordinated entry system and marketing that. It is the prioritization tool adopted by the Homeless Continuum of Care to prioritize housing options for the most vulnerable in the community. This system is managed by Sarah. Given that this is a pathway to housing for many experiencing homelessness, it's imperative that stakeholders in the community are educated on this process, and Sarah is very focused on doing that work. And also improving marketing and public relations regarding homeless and homeless services in general. And next slide, please. And so as the implementation framework is created, it will include the following recommendations: prioritizing recommendations to help identify the order of implementation. According to a recent survey completed by our steering committee, top priorities include increasing investment in community-based housing and services options, expand and enhance street outreach efforts across San Antonio, develop detailed prioritization policies and targeted intervention to most effectively connect persons experiencing unsheltered homelessness to stable housing. And in addition, ensuring individuals with lived experiences are included in decision-making and processes. The implementation team is working on a detailed 5-year timeline, ensuring that the voices and perspectives needed are included in every aspect of the plan and implementation, along with other stakeholders and the community. Ensuring that we have the skills and expertise that are needed to implement the recommendations. We must identify which organizations are responsible and what skill sets are needed to accomplish the goals. And also define the methods of engagement and communication and the performance metrics and expected outcomes so that we can measure the work that we're doing and ensure implementation is aligned with our overall goals and outcomes. Next slide. And so to summarize, our next steps are finalizing that implementation plan and stakeholders. Hopefully by the end of a good start on it by the end of May, and communicating the plan with key groups, as well as adopting the COC board, or the COC board adopting the strategic plan as their community strategic plan, and having a strong discussion about Sarah's role in doing that and the role of other providers. And so that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're just so grateful to the city for their leadership and bringing all the partners together to bring us to this point. And I think what's exciting is, as we look at the plan and the implementation of the plan, so much of the work is already happening and things have already been sped up. Like you said, the coordination across agencies, due to the challenges of last year, the community really came together. And so next we're going to hear from our Youth Action Board presenters. And concurrently to this strategic plan being developed, this broader plan, we were also going through a planning process specifically for youth and young adults. And so we have two separate plans, but they're really complementary and aligned. The We Say plan just goes into more detail specifically around our youth and young adult initiative. So with that, I'll hand it off to Suyapa and Tanya to discuss our progress there.
Hello, everyone. Today, Tanya and I will be sharing about Sarah's and YAB's efforts regarding Youth Voice. We will touch on the Youth Action Board of San Antonio, the We Say Plan, and the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, also known as YHDP. To start, my name is Siapa. I'm the Youth Liaison at Sarah and the Youth Action Board Secretary. I will now pass it on to Tanya to introduce herself and continue the presentation. Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Tanya. I am the YAS parliamentarian. The Youth Action Board is focused on establishing equity and San Antonio homelessness response system. We advise and inform the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, YHDP. We focus on housing all youths in San Antonio by centering the youth voice. The YAB is composed of a majority of youths who have experienced homelessness or have a variety of experience related to housing insecurity. Requirements for joining the YABs are that youths who apply are 17 to 25 years old and that they have compassion for preventing and ending youth homelessness. Next slide, please. Our 2021 goals include, first, to include developing movement to our house, to set a clear message and continuing developing the movement to our house. That is our first goal. Our second goal is to actively share resources in the community by hosting a drive and community presentation to issue the youth homelessness. Our last goal is to help the community understand the reality of homelessness by doing so by creating more compassion and awareness for the issue.
The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development created the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program. The purpose of the program is to build a movement to prevent and end youth homelessness. In September 2019, Sarah received a $6.88 million grant to create the Coordinated Community Plan, also known as We Say. The grant helps fund innovative housing projects and supportive services. YHDP provides communities with funding, planning frameworks, support, and opportunities for new partnerships and collaboration. Next slide, please.
We Say. We Say stands for Empowering San Antonio Youths. The document outlines our community plan to prevent and end youth homelessness. This plan is a product of extensive cross-system collaboration with Sarah and the youth, YAB. Our vision with this plan is to create a compassionate community with no youths experiencing homelessness. We want an effective, collaborating, and equitable youth homeless response system. All youth in need, housing, and services will be empowered to get what they need to thrive.
We say delineated 5 critical goals that we must meet as a community to prevent and end youth homelessness. The first being identification, to identify all unaccompanied youth experiencing homelessness in San Antonio and Bexar County. Our second goal, diversion and reducing barriers, to utilize diversion strategies whenever possible and otherwise provide immediate access to low barrier crisis housing and services to any youth who needs and wants it. We also wanted to establish a CE process that effectively links all youth experiencing homelessness to housing and service solutions that are tailored to their need. Our fourth goal is that youth are quickly assisted in finding permanent housing options with no preconditions and are paired with individualized and client-driven support and services. And our last goal, of course, is to prevent homelessness. There are resources, plans, and system capacity in place to continue to prevent and quickly end future experiences of homelessness among youth. Next slide. Thank you. Tanya and I shared our email addresses on the slides, so please feel free to reach out with any questions. We also included our social media accounts. If anyone is interested in giving us a follow, we periodically share how to get involved with the YAB, what we're up to, and community resources. Lastly, if you're passionate about preventing and ending youth homelessness in San Antonio, please sign up for the movement to house all youth. The link, or I guess the petition to sign up, is available through the SARA website. And yes, I think that's everything from us.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think it was great to be able to connect all of the work that's happened over the last year, the data, hearing from experts, and now giving everyone an opportunity to learn about how they can engage and move forward with us in our plans to implement the We Say plan to house all youth, and also the broader community strategic plan. And so thank you for joining us today. Our full length point in time count report will be available on our website today. So look for that. If you're subscribed to our newsletter, you'll get an alert, but you can also look at our reports and data section of our website. This is a huge undertaking. Thank you to Dr. Kamal and the team members that supported getting this full length report done. It provides deeper analysis and research to provide even more context to the numbers from this year. And if you have any questions for us, you're welcome to share now or share them in the chat, and we can take a few minutes, or we can conclude, and we look forward to feedback on our full length report that we'll share today. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us for your lunch hour. We hope you got something out of today and that you'll stay engaged in these planning processes and work that's happening. It's really going to take all of us as a community. This is a complex problem, but we also believe that when we align our goals and work together, it's a solvable problem. But it takes your engagement and this education opportunity to be able to address such a complex task. So thank you.